All aboard, friends, and welcome to the first episode of a special two-part tribute to music legend. This is the FONDpod, the FONcast. It's friends occasionally not disagreeing. I'm Brett, here today with Joe and Cody to talk about and honor the long and accomplished career of Ozzy Osbourne, who recently passed away. Before that, let's go see what our hosts have been up to recently. Anybody want to jump in with exciting things?
Yeah, I can go first. I don't think I mentioned on here either a while back, so I'm going to just chat music since we're doing a music podcast. I went to Lincoln Park a while back when they came to Chicago, and I don't think I talked about that on here. They were
He said
fantastic.
exciting things, Cody. Exciting
Exactly.
things.
Super exciting things. Dave, fellow podcast host, went with me and my kids, and was fantastic. I wish I had seen them when Chester was still with them, but Ms. Armstrong did a wonderful job filling in for him, and it was great, good energy all through. I think I was most surprised when they pulled the crowd and said, "Who's here for your first Linkin Park concert?" And I think I might have told you guys maybe like, I'd say 80% of the hands went up for their first show, which I was like,
Wow.
bodes well for the future of the band, I think. But I was quite surprised that that was actually the case. Maybe some of the Chester diehards refused to go. I guess that could be a factor. I don't know, but they were great. Kind of a weird space themey. They had two giant boxes above them on the stage, and it was like a center in the round type thing, and lasers were shooting, and they were doing stuff on the screens up top and stuff. Super cool. Really, really enjoyed that one. It was great to see them finally. And then a couple nights ago, I went to see My Chemical Romance at Soldier Field in Chicago.
Again, he said exciting things, Cody.
Exactly. It was exciting for many reasons, not the least of which is fascism, which was the theme of the show, apparently, in addition to the anniversary of the Black Parade album. But they had a whole performance set up the whole night. They do a song, do a little bit of a skit, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it was a little creepy at times to kind of see a little bit of enforced fascism on stage with the band and telling them what to do and how to dress and things of that nature, and a lot of fascist nationalistic things. They had flags that were lit up above the stage of this fake country, which they have named Drag with two A's, which I'm pretty sure is going to pay off as some sort of obvious reference to like drag, which is another form they're going to go for here as a fuck you to the government. But I guess they're doing some kind of really slow burn. It's only like a 12 concert tour, and they're doing some kind of slow burn where like each show they change their makeup a little bit, and like the acts change a little bit as far as what happens on stage. And so I think they're like evolving into something here by the time it's done, which I think they have a few shows left. But also super good. They did the big stage, and then I really enjoyed they I saw on Setlist FM they had the second half of their act was called the B stage, which I just assumed was like the non-album songs that they were going to play, but they actually did leave the big stage for the second half of the show, and they went out into this little tiny, it had to be like 20 by 20 foot stage in the middle of the mosh pit in the first seat to the crowd on the floor, and then they played the next like 15 songs on that little tiny stage, which was, it felt intimate, even though it was in like Soldier Field, which probably holds like 80,000 people, so it was really cool. And then I think I shared with you guys last song they did a cover. They did a couple covers, one System of a Down cover, I think, and then they did Bullet with Butterfly Wings at the end. And they did that at the show before Chicago also as one of their covers, but they finished with it here in Chicago, and then they did a little announcement. They brought Billy Corgan out to do the vocals for the chorus and play guitar, and then Gerard sang the verses and Billy did the choruses. So it was pretty awesome way to end the concert. So yeah, that's what I'm up to. Lots of music in addition to listening to all this stuff. So
Who was running Madame Zuzu's tea house when Billy Corgan was at the concert?
Who's looking depressed in the front row of Big Thunder Railroad?
That's one of my favorite memes of all time. I have not been up to anything even nearly as exciting as Cody, even though I don't care for either of the bands that he saw live.
Why do you hate Devo?
I mean, you didn't really mention Devo.
That's true. Devo. They were the openers for MCR. Paris was the opener.
That would have been cool. I would like to see Devo live.
Devo brought the energy. I was shocked.
I would like to see Billy Corgan or Smashing Pumpkins live.
When I looked up that one guy from what's the guy's name from Devo?
Mark Mothersbaugh.
75. I looked it up when they were singing, and I was like, Jesus Christ! Like, I hope I can move half as well as this guy and sound half as good as this guy. 75.
Yeah. He's an interesting dude. He has composed a lot of film scores, including
Hmm.
for a couple of the Wes Anderson movies that I really like.
Okay. Yeah, they were
So
cool. They were doing costume changes and like ripping their clothes off as they were singing, and they were cool.
nice. Well, I want to talk about butter.
Face.
Um, One thing I have been doing recently is enjoying Kerrygold Irish butter. I have long seen people talk about how much better it is than other butters, and I finally tried it, and it turns out it's right. It's delicious. So, highly recommend getting yourself some good bread from a local bakery and some Kerrygold grass-fed Irish butter, official sponsors of the Fun Podcast,
They fed the
and
butter
just
grass.
slather it on that bread and go to town. It's delicious.
Hmm.
I use it other places.
I mean, there's no application where it's not great.
I filled the containers from other places.
Thanks, Kerrygold, for all that sponsorship money and butter.
Nice.
I also wanted to mention I don't know how old it is. It's fairly recent, but it's been out for I think at least a couple months now. A series Alexis and I have been enjoying on Apple TV Plus, which kind of low-key has a lot of the better TV series recently, but nobody has Apple TV Plus besides me, it seems like. But it's a show called Your Friends and Neighbors, and it stars John Hamm as John Hamm. He's not actually John Hamm, but it's John Hamm is a handsome rich guy, which is basically what John Hamm is in everything. He's like a stockbroker or something, and at the beginning of the series, he loses his job and has a lot of bills to pay despite being incredibly wealthy. He's got like an ex-wife with a giant mansion that he has to pay for and his own house and a Maserati and all these other fancy things. And after he gets fired, he learns that he can't really get hired at any other firms because he has signed a non-compete clause that lasts 2 years. So he realizes that he can maybe turn to a life of crime to help pay those bills. He kind of starts to realize that all his friends and neighbors are rich assholes who have so many valuable possessions that they probably wouldn't even miss any of them if they went missing. So he starts stealing stuff and fencing it, and we're only 2 or 3 episodes in, so I don't really know where it's going, but so far it's quite enjoyable.
I had one question. How
Yeah.
many scenes does the Maserati do 185?
Um, it's hard to answer because he lost his license. Now he doesn't drive.
Oh, okay. So it just sits in
Yeah.
the. I see. Okay.
But life's been good to him so far.
Okay. Well, doesn't sound like it, but
Brett, what have you been up to?
Real briefly, we have been looking into getting birds as a pet.
oh no.
Boo.
Because
Get a real pet.
my wife and both children have various levels of pet and dog allergies, and so we're looking at alternatives. I'm sure there will be more of that to come in the future.
Can't you just
That-
inject your family with dog like you did for the peanuts?
like eating a dog? That might
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Alex might be able to answer that. The other thing I've been doing.
I know where you can get some pretty cheap.
uh, we I've been catching up on Squid Game because I originally somewhat early on I watched like the first half of the first episode season 1, and I was like, I just can't get behind this character. I don't like this guy. He's just like, I have to watch a whole season with this guy as the main guy, and I was like, nah. But I had people say like, it's really good. You should watch this because now it's 3 seasons in, and so I watched through the first season, and it was really really dang enjoyable. And the character did redeem himself, so that was good. So I'm probably continuing on with seasons 2 and 3 here shortly. And the last thing I'll talk about is we last weekend was my wife and I's anniversary. And part of what we did was went to an escape room because that's the kind of couple we are.
Love it.
And
What is marriage if not an ongoing escape room?
Constantly trying to escape. Yes. We we did a new one at like I would say our favorite escape room place to go. They had a new room that we hadn't done yet, and it was the theme of an abandoned circus, which I
Ooh,
hadn't seen anywhere else before, and it was really dang. It was easily, I think, the best room that they have done at that location.
That's cool.
Lots of really cool puzzles, and like thematically, everything was great. They had like a strongman thing that was part of one of the games, and like a knife throwing thing. You didn't actually throw knives, but like that's part of the theme. And there was uh just lots of really cool stuff there. And despite the room being designed for 3+ people, the two of us did escape with 3 minutes left. So
Nice.
so uh yeah, I would we talked immediately after we left the place. We're like, we would come back and do this again and pay to be in the room just to stand in the corner and watch other people do it because it was that like level of enjoyable.
Wow.
So perhaps someday we'll like gather up our children and like our my sister-in-law or something and people and like go do that. But
I too would pay to stand in a corner and watch other people do it.
oh yes, like that. Um all right. Well, let's get on with our discussion a bit more here. So, as I said early on, we're talking about the career of Ozzy Osbourne, which we're going to start off with right off through with Black Sabbath and on through his solo career and everything else in between. Um, and we originally discussed doing a top 10 songs, which something we do a lot around here is top 10 lists, which we then expanded that to 15 because there was just so much material we didn't want to have to cut out. And then Cody suggested a little different format from the top 10 list that we commonly do. So what we're actually doing tonight is we're going to take turns talking about our favorite songs from each album throughout his career. And in this way, we kind of get to discuss many of our favorite Ozzy songs, but it also kind of makes it a bit of like a game or challenge to us, as we're only picking one song from each album, so we have to like cut ones that we songs we really love. We're not going to be talking about because we're narrowing it down to one song. And also, it kind of gives us a chance to kind of just look at his career as a whole as we go. So I think it'd be a fun format, a little bit different change of pace from what we normally do. And I think before we get into that discussion, we'll just give each of us a little time here, just kind of talk about our personal history with Ozzy's music and how it's impacted us. So either of you two want to go first on that, or I can jump in either way.
Mine will be the shortest, so I can go first. Um, Growing up, I don't feel like I listened to any of this Black Sabbath or Ozzy, which is interesting looking back now because my mom was into like so much hard rock and adjacent metal, I guess, that it's weird I didn't hear some of this from her. But I don't remember any, even like with all of her albums she had. I don't think maybe she was a little more on the like country folk rock type stuff like Skinnerd and stuff like of that nature that didn't just quite get into this territory. So it is kind of weird that I didn't really have that. And then I think as far as Sabbath goes, like I really probably had only heard the Paranoid album legitimately um, till maybe a few years ago, which is a perspective for us tonight. And then for Ozzy, you were such a big Ozzy fan. We heard Ozzy with you quite often, Brett. And
Sure,
then
yeah.
um, I know, like I mentioned before, I bought the uh, is it the Ozman Comet that has the black album cover with the little
Yep. Gold
yeah,
cross
so the
cover.
greatest hits
Yep.
kind of type thing. So I had that on CD, and I would listen to that quite often. So like if it's on that CD, I've heard it a lot of times, but beyond that, I don't think I had ever listened to like a studio album of Ozzy's all the way through. But he's a really interesting character. I mean, the little I know of him, even just from music history, and I was thankful I listened to Chris Jericho's podcast still. Maybe not weekly, but I do check out like depending on what the topic is that week. I'll pop in and listen. He had and names will escape me now, but he had on several guests on this one that they did a little tribute to Ozzy on. where they just kind of talked about him a little bit. But I think it was, might have, oh man, I'm trying to think who it was now. Um, but it was fun to listen to them talk about him because they really got into a lot of the like personal stories and pranks that he would play on stage and behind the scenes, and like it was a whole side of him that I didn't really know and hadn't heard about. I mean, obviously he had the TV show and stuff, but it was, let's see here. Yeah, so it was former Ozzy bassist Phil Susan, Anthrax bassist Frank Bello, Warrant frontman Robert Mason, who also did the backup vocals for the Osmosis tour, and then Metal Blade, I think magazine website founder Brian Slagle were the four that were on there. But that was kind of fun just to hear them talk about their favorite memories too, because they seem to know a lot more about him than I did. But he seemed like he was larger than life character, and certainly is a loss to the music world. So.
Yeah, I think I mentioned on our 80s music countdown that I feel like I have always been a fan of Ozzy and Black Sabbath. Like it's one of those things where I can't really remember where I first encountered him. I mean, I listened to a lot of classic rock radio. I grew up in the Chicago area, and we had a couple different classic rock stations that were pretty good. So I definitely encountered a lot of the Sabbath music through that. And then, I mean, I remember especially in the like late 80s, early 90s, we had cable, so we had MTV. And there's, certain eras of Ozzy's music that would show up on that. So I kind of always enjoyed his music. I didn't really get super into any kind of metal really until probably my later high school years, like junior, senior year. And then like going into college, there was probably about a solid decade there where I just, for whatever reason, got like super into Ozzy and, including the Black Sabbath stuff. Um, I mean, on the 80s podcast, I got a little emotional talking about, kind of identifying with a lot of his lyrics and, um, the way that heavy metal kind of makes you feel when you're a nerd and don't feel like you're very strong otherwise and things like that. But like Ozzy specifically, for some reason, I think part of it for me is that throughout the course of his career, he always was paired with like some phenomenal guitarists, which I'm sure we'll talk about a lot, both in this episode and the next one. But I feel like I always appreciated, both with Black Sabbath and his solo career, the songwriting, like a lot of great melodies, a lot of great hooks, great guitar riffs. Um, there was specifically an Ozzy live DVD I had. It was Ozzy Live at Budokan that I probably would have literally worn a hole in if that was a thing that was like feasible with DVDs. Like I watched that endlessly. Um, and I just, for some reason, his music just spoke to me and got me through some hard times.
I definitely could mirror a fair amount of what you were just saying there, in that I in my teens, my early teens, I kind of like just I consciously made a decision to like listen to more of his music. And I believe it was I don't know specifically, but I remember there was a point where I like actually remember my mom saying that she listened to Black Sabbath in like high school and enjoyed it. And I was like,
Wow, your mom's way cooler than mine.
I was like, huh? Okay. And so I feel like there was a point where I kind of made a conscious decision to like check out more of that. Cause, I obviously heard, as Cody was saying, like our local radio station played, the classic rock station played some Ozzy and a little bit of Sabbath. And so I was familiar to some degree with his music, but like started checking out more of it, and it just connected with me. And I don't necessarily know that I could enunciate why, or even like truly understand myself why. I think that's, you know, a lot of times with music, there isn't something you can really point to just say, well, this is why I love it. It just, there's something about it that just strikes a chord, to put a pun on it, that just matches with you somehow. And Ozzy's music for me, I think definitely fit that role for me. And he was easily my favorite artist for quite a long time. And I followed his career, and I like had like magazines and this and that. And this part is going to be terrible for an audio podcast, but I've collected, I brought some of my collection here with me tonight. So just because it's right here next to me, the first thing, I have a whole box full of, you can't see it on the camera because the camera's cutting it out. This actually might not work for you guys either.
Stick in front of your face.
Sure. If you quickly disable your background in Zoom, it should show.
Yeah, that's true. I can do that like while I'm talking about this a little bit here. So what I have here is Ozzy collectible like trading cards.
Ooh.
This is pretty cool. I think if I remember right, I actually have 2 sets of these. I have one that I like kept sealed, and like this one I have out. See if I can I don't know if I could do this on the fly here. But we'll just see if I can trick my camera into showing these things. Next up here, I have a Todd McFarlane series. Oh, it is not going to do it, is it? It is real stingy. Todd McFarlane, Bark at the Moon.
Triple dot it. You got this.
Like the let's see here. I can do this. I can do it. All right.
Triple dot adjust background.
Background filter. Camera. Green screen. Where is the green screen settings? Yo,
virtual backgrounds, none.
You got this.
Video settings. Virtual background.
Brett, I don't ask much. I just want you. Work. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
This will work right here. Yeah. So I have this guy. Is a very
that's cool.
Cool, like articulated Bark at the Moon set with like background and everything.
I feel like that looks better than the actual like Ozzy in the costume.
Probably yes. Sorry, one more. Yeah. Sorry, my wife was talking to me. I have this other Todd McFarlane action figure, which is Ozzy like on stage with like a bunch of bats and other things included.
Nice.
Well, I have 2 of these. I have one that's out of the box, and this one's in the box. Yeah. 2 guys like this, which is like an early kind of almost like,
wow,
not necessarily Funko, but it's a very large head figure, non-movable figure.
Okay.
2 like that. I have this guy.
Whoa. Holy crap.
Which is about 15 inches tall or so. I don't know.
That is a big boy.
Large. 1/5 scale.
But it's a Bark at the Moon. They style it as it's a doll is what they call it, but it's large and like fully 3D and like has like synthetic hair and everything. It used to sing part of the song, but the batteries died. I tested it. But I have 2 of these as well. Geez. And I have a different one that's the same series that is a Blizzard of Oz like stage set.
Wow.
Kind of Ozzy.
It's one of the cooler things Jakey Lee was ever associated with.
I also have I got up my CD collection because I wanted to know. I couldn't remember. I have 30 CDs associated with Ozzy.
Wow.
Through Black Sabbath and live albums and things like that. I have my first tattoo. It's an Ozzy figure. I won't show you that on screen here at this moment, but he like in the, I would say
it's
like
a life-size portrait of Ozzy Osbourne on his hog.
On my yes. But he had on his website in like the mid 90s, he had like some characters like this like little like sketched like very like crudely drawn figure, and it had like different variations of that. And I got one of those on my back. My high school term paper was why Ozzy is like the greatest rock and roll artist ever, essentially.
Wow. I forgot that. That's awesome.
And the last thing I wrote down here is that I cross my Z's, which is not a crazy wild thing, but I do it because
that's cool. I like that.
Interesting.
It has, for a long part of my career, my life, his career like permeated my life. So has absolutely been, a very important thing in my life and has shaped me in ways I probably don't even know. So that's where I am with that. But just incredibly important to me. As I was listening to these songs, I am not afraid to say I wept many times. In part because I kind of disconnected from it, and I think I can trace it back to when I got Sirius satellite radio. I stopped listening to CDs, and so I stopped listening to my collection and just listened to like new music. And then my Sirius ended, and since that point, I've just kind of been listening to like a lot of things on Spotify, like podcasts and like other things, just and never really came back to the music. So doing this legitimately was like rediscovering an old friend that like I had forgotten that meant so much to me.
I feel that.
And so this journey has been pretty crazy all around. But that's enough of my shenanigans here on this. But so as I said, we are doing all of Ozzy's career. We're starting with Black Sabbath. And as I mentioned, this is going to be a two-part episode. So this first episode that will drop will cover just the Black Sabbath years. And then we will record and release, I don't know if it'll be next week or in 2 weeks, whatever. Later on will be the solo career portion. So look for that coming up after you're done listening to this one. But we'll kick it off here. And still not quite getting into the music discussion. We'll do just a brief bit of history here. Born John Michael Osbourne, December 3rd, 1948, in what he has himself kind of described as like the dirty industrialized city of Birmingham, England. Had a very rough childhood, to put it mildly. We're not going to get into that, but he dropped out of school at 15, began working a series of various jobs, and at the age of 17, spent 6 weeks in jail for robbing a clothes store. He credited the Beatles song She Loves You, which right off the top of my head, I don't know how that goes, but he says that is the song that inspired him to become a musician. He was briefly in a band with future Sabbath bandmate Geezer Butler called Rare Breed. Then they both joined up with Tony Iommi and Bill Ward, the other Sabbath bandmates, in a band of all things called Polka Tulk Blues. And Iommi recruited Osbourne because he had put a flyer out that read, Ozzy Zig needs a gig, has his own PA. Which at that time would have been a big deal, I assume, because like he had his own equipment.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man, we got you. So they also briefly changed their name to Earth until they realized there was another band already named Earth, and it was causing some confusion. And they were playing some shows in 1969 across the street from a theater, which was playing the 1963 Boris Karloff horror movie Black Sabbath. And the rest, as they say, is history. So that brings us up to the first album we'll be discussing tonight, which is the 1970 release Black Sabbath.
What is this thing before me?
Which I personally, I love the fact that the first track on the first album from Black Sabbath, the album Black Sabbath, the title track is Black Sabbath. I feel like that, like more bands should do that. I don't know how they probably couldn't all pull that off necessarily, but I do love that here.
A lot of Black Sabbath.
Yes.
I always enjoy that as well. Another of my favorite examples is the song Bad Company by the band Bad Company off the album Bad Company.
Yes.
I feel like modern bands don't do songs with their
No.
band name anymore.
Yeah. Uh, so I guess I'll just kick us off here. So this album for me was it's interesting because the US or North American release of the album only has 5 tracks technically. So to pick one out of 5 here uh was was actually still pretty difficult because there's 3 like really good tracks on here. But the one I'm going with is and I'm just going to list the whole thing as it is here on the album. It's Wasp, Behind the Wall of Sleep, basically NIB, which as I've seen it, like there's been some just like I don't know that they necessarily know what NIB stands for, or they like themselves have differing stories on how that is exactly. But um this song for me is so they traditionally, as I've heard it always on the radio, it starts with what is essentially a bass solo, which is the track basically, and but that leads directly into like that riff is like so heavy. It's like 3 C's thick, heavy guitar riff. It is like it is a thick, heavy guitar riff, and I think it. I don't actually know for certain, but it feels to me like the bass and guitar are like playing in unison.
I
What do you
believe that is
think,
true.
though?
Yeah, I
It
think that's
feels
correct.
like they're playing the same
Yeah.
chords together, and that's what generates that sound.
So honestly, revisiting a lot of the Black Sabbath stuff, that struck me. That is often the case on their music. And I think it's interesting because, I mean, obviously they have 4 members with Ozzy being the vocalist, but, a lot of bands have 2 guitarists because you can have one person playing rhythm while the other person plays lead.
Yeah,
With Sabbath, it struck me that a lot of times Geezer Butler is kind of doubling on bass what the main guitar riff is, and that kind of allows him to like continue doing that and hold down that riff while Geezer Butler is playing a solo. Um, so it's kind of cool. I mean, and not that, I mean, while Tony Iommi's playing a solo, I should say.
yeah.
Um, and I mean, Geezer Butler does a lot of awesome things on bass, like aside from that. But that is an interesting thing that I noticed is I feel like they often do that in their songs, but this is definitely one of the kind of like I think prime examples of that.
Um, the other song in here that I was very close to picking is the title track Black Sabbath, and I just real briefly on that one. Like I can't imagine like what it would have been like listening the first time hearing that song. You might People must have been like, "What the hell is this?" Like, because it is like it has a very ominous feeling. Um, but here my favorite is definitely NIB.
I mean, I'm just gonna. We said we were gonna kind of share like general thoughts about each album quickly.
Yeah,
Kind of carrying off what you were saying about the first track, Black Sabbath. That's not my pick for my favorite song, but I did have a note that the title track is an amazing intro to the band and what they would become. In my mind, Black Sabbath invented, I mean, a lot of people would say that they invented heavy metal in general, and I mean, I think there's definitely an argument to be made for that.
I agree.
But they very specifically, I think, invented the genre that would become known as doom metal, which there are still bands to this day. Ghost, I think, is probably one of the bigger ones. At least a lot of their stuff is like doom metal sound. And Black Sabbath basically was doom metal. Like it's kind of the hallmark is kind of a slower, gloomier, like foreboding vibe, and you get that right from the start. I mean, like you said, Brett, I can't imagine what it would have been like in, 1970, like hearing this album for the first
Yeah.
time.
All the hippie
Like,
music going on and all the experiments
yeah, it's
of
like
Pink Floyd.
I'm scared all of a sudden. Like I feel bad. What's going on? So it's like, I mean, we talked again, going back to the 80s podcast, I talked about, Welcome to the Jungle being the first track on Guns N' Roses' debut album. Like this feels similar as far as just being like an introduction to this band. Like this is what we're about. All that being said, for my favorite song on this album, I will admit for a couple of these, I kind of tried to pick slightly more obscure songs or ones that were not like the super obvious ones. Like NIB, Stone Cold Classic, like one of the, probably top five most iconic Sabbath songs. But I'm gonna go with The Wizard.
Hmm.
Um, Partly because it's interesting to me that this song features heavy use of harmonica being played by Ozzy Osbourne himself.
I do love it.
Um, Maybe the most metal use of harmonica in human history or in music history. Um, I mean, it's interesting how they pair that with the guitar riff. Like it kind of starts off more harmonica heavy, and then Tony Iommi kind of comes in and matches what Ozzy's playing on the harmonica, and it becomes metal all of a sudden. Um, Lyrically, I like it as well. It's like the lyrics are pretty simple, but it's literally about one of the things I'm sure we'll talk about is a lot of people, especially with like Satanic Panic in the 80s and stuff. There's this idea that, heavy metal is like evil. It is about like, trying to convince people to love Satan or whatever. And this song is literally about a wizard that goes around and uses his powers to make people happy.
Yeah, it is.
Apparently, it was like inspired by Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, and it's just, this kind of the lyrics are super happy, but it's also got kind of a fun melody. And another thing, honestly, that caught me revisiting like this whole project is especially with the Osbournes, the TV show, I feel like Ozzy kind of became known to a lot of people as this kind of like bumbling, like fool of a person. But he wrote or co-wrote like all of his songs. Like he obviously had a lot of talent as an artist. Um, and I think I like that he's playing harmonica here because it shows, him doing something that you don't really see. Like I think that's the only instrument that he really plays on any of the albums.
I believe so.
Um, but I think it's cool that it immediately adds a little more depth to him. So, The Wizard.
Be interesting how many albums we all picked the same song on, if at all tonight. But maybe there's a couple albums out there that might have a shot at it, I think. I was going to ask you guys what you drinking tonight, if anything.
Well, nothing anymore.
Well,
I was I was drinking actually a cocktail I mentioned on a previous podcast, the Division Bell, which is named after a Pink Floyd album.
Nice.
Um, it is mezcal and a couple other things.
nice.
Yeah. I myself just have a big jug of water because I knew I'd be talking a lot.
I'm sipping down a mule here, but I also decided to add in honor of Ozzy tonight. I'll also be sipping out of this Crystal Skull as well as we go through for the evening. So
What's in
excited
that
to.
skull?
And in honor of Dan Aykroyd.
Did he just die?
No, he owns Crystal Skull Vodka.
Oh. All right, let's start with the fact that I didn't know this was an album. So here's that to start with. Ooh, that burns. All right. Good stuff. No, I actually didn't know there was an album called Black Sabbath, and I actually didn't know there was a song called Black Sabbath. However, listening to this one, when I heard the song Black Sabbath, I was like, oh, I do know this song. I just didn't know that this song was actually called Black Sabbath. So my runner-up tonight, I did a runner-up on most albums, which I don't have a lot of notes for each one, but I have NIB as my runner-up, and my only notes there say this is probably the actual best song on the album. But my song that I chose on this one is Sleeping Village which is the first 3 minutes and 45 seconds of the A Bit of Finger Sleeping Village warning track out there. From my research, at least, it sounds like there is no second at all that is A Bit of Finger. That was purely marketing. That's not even a track you can listen to. There's 0 seconds of that song, but they needed 10 titles on the album, I guess they said. So this one's really fun. Really has like this weird, haunting, strange sound as it comes in. And then it has this boinging sound that to me kind of sounds almost like a frog calling for about 30 seconds before it ramps up into like some maracas that are in there and some really like lulling guitars and then the drums. And I think at some point we even get like a little bit of the classic 60s, 70s triangle played in there as well. It's kind of fun to do these music reviews and try to pick out little background instruments in there, but I think there's some triangle in there. Very different, obviously, than what I knew about Ozzy and Sabbath going into this stuff, but that's what I chose for this first one here, Sleeping Village. No match.
That's fun that you picked that one. I do enjoy it myself. So, all right. Well, let's move on to album number 2, which interestingly also came out in 1970. And as I've read, they actually pushed the date back because the Black Sabbath album was still on the charts.
Wow.
And so they're like, let's push this off a little bit here. So, so they were, and we'll continue to talk about that here as we go on, but they cranked out music in the early 70s here.
Oh Lord, yeah.
But yes, moving on to album number 2, titled Paranoid. And this album had 8 tracks on it here.
But, are we rotating or are you going first for each one? I was curious.
We can rotate. If anybody wants to jump in here with what they got.
All right, I'll jump in. Haha.
Jump in.
So, I mean, first, general album thoughts. This is a classic. Like, there's a reason that multiple of these songs were in heavy rotation on, classic rock radio. This is at least very close to being a perfect album. Like, it is just bangers from start to finish. I mean, War Pigs, Paranoid, Iron Man, like these are probably the best known Black Sabbath songs by people that are like not super into Black Sabbath.
Yeah, probably.
I really like though. I like that there's a little variety on this though too. Like there's a couple tracks that feel more kind of like psychedelic rock, like Planet Caravan and Rat Salad. It varies things up a little bit, but I think those tracks still feel like they're part of the same whole as everything else. I just think this is a fantastic album. As far as favorite songs go, this is another instance where I'm kind of trying to pick a less obvious one, but my pick for this is Jack the Stripper / Fairies Wear Boots.
Okay.
I love this entire album. I really this track, like, I love how funky it is. I mean, one of the things that I really like about Black Sabbath in general is I feel like a lot of their songs get into like a really good groove where it's like it really makes you want to like bang your head, if not just dance. Like, and this track, like, I mean, it kind of changes its direction a few times. There are a few different like cool riffs throughout it. Lyrically, I feel like there may be some things that are a little bit questionable, but overall, I just think it's kind of a like musically, it is just a really fun track. It really kind of makes me want to dance like a fairy in boots.
Yeah, I mean that is a bold choice given the 3 heavy hitters on this album, but I mean it's a great song on its own as well. Can't argue with that. And one thing I would add too is because I didn't mention this off the start is the band just they started as a blues band really, which is as I mentioned before, like their first, the 4 of them together, they originally were called Polka Tulk Blues because they were a blues band, and then evolved this heavy sound, but the rhythms still come from blues
Yeah, you
blues
definitely
bass.
hear it throughout. I was going to mention
Yeah.
that on the first album. I mean, like the Wizard, obviously, like with the harmonica, and I feel like there are other tracks on their first album specifically too, where you really get more of that kind of blues rock vibe. But I do feel like throughout their career, you get like hints of that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of that when you were talking about like just the melodies making you like feel the music and like really getting into it. I think a lot
Yeah,
of that comes from that bass sound.
yeah. One, I mean, kind of going back to like a lot of their heaviness kind of came from Tony Iommi's accident.
Mm,
Their lead guitarist, when he was like 16 or 17, I think, was working in a sheet metal factory and lost the tips of two of his fingers on his fretting hand for guitar. And kind of as a result of that, started experimenting with down tuning, which inherently gives like a darker, heavier sound. Also relied more on like power chords because they're a little bit easier to play. So a lot of their sound kind of came into existence because of the limitations of, the result of that accident.
mm.
So it's interesting. Like, I don't know if metal as we know it would have necessarily existed had Tony Iommi not had an accident in a metal factory,
Yeah.
ironically enough.
So,
No.
so this goes out to all those factory workers out there. A little bit of don't have to be safe all the time because some things
Yeah,
might,
be a little reckless.
yeah, be a little
Right.
reckless. Might change the world.
I'll go second on this one. So this is the album I actually did know. So yay. I got a couple ties to pro wrestling with this album. So my runner-up song, which is very good, is Paranoid, which I don't think you can convince me that they didn't model the Ultimate Warrior's theme music off of this song. Like it sounds very similar to like the just frenetic energy that goes through that he used to like rush to the ring with. So I'm pretty sure there's some borrowing that took place there to create his song off that song. But my winner for this one is I chose a little track called Iron Man, which I really couldn't pick against. It's really kind of a like audioly when I listen to this, it sounds like more of a just plain simple and heavy song, but it's so good and has a little story to it. And this probably, I think, was the first Sabbath song that I heard. So it probably wormed its way into my head and just lives there, kind of like a, I don't even know, like an Enter Sandman or pick your band with the whatever song you want to associate with them. And then this one also was fun for me as a kid because the tag team, the Road Warriors, used to use this one as their theme music to come to the ring. So they actually did use this song as they came down. But great song, great album.
Also, a great song. Yes. Um, I this was a very hard album to pick from, and I really love War Pigs. Like it has such a cool sound and just a great, interesting message behind it. But for me, it did come down to just I Paranoid is one of the greatest metal songs ever written. And so I had to put that as my number one on this album. Just like from the very first note of the song, it rips right from that very first note. And it's only 2 minutes and 48 seconds long, but like every second of the song is just incredible for like the energy and like the pacing that it brings. But it's not just that awesome riff. It's like the vocals are like really strong and like just the both of them together, like they like it doesn't let up the whole time. And is so cool and fun. And um probably yeah, I think I probably could definitely say this was the first song that I knew all the words for. you know, I didn't I there was no question what any of the words were. Um so
More than Ozzy could say. Oh,
quite possibly. Um, so yeah, for my choice on this album is the title track "Paranoid." Uh, just incredible.
No
I was just
match.
listening to it. That song does rip. It's
Yeah,
another
it's
one too
awesome.
where like the bass actually really kind of drives the song as much as the
Mm,
guitar if you listen to it. Like Geezer
yep.
Butler is going to town.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
to
There
share.
are,
Go ahead.
I know there was a specific song I don't, right off the top of my head, I don't know where in my notes that is, but I did note that. But just in, like, in general, throughout the band's career, I feel like they were very good at letting all the instruments have their own voice. And like you can very clearly hear what they are doing and how it's contributing. And I think all of the music benefits because of that. But yes, I agree with that 100%.
Cancel my comment. We're good. I found a headline when I searched on Google. It said somebody there was a Facebook post that the title was "The creator of the Road Warriors entrance music has died."
Oh, no,
But I realized in looking that up that apparently that was like the AI summary or something, but not actually somebody's post. Because I was like, why would you word it like that? But anyway,
that's an odd way. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
no match.
Let us move on to album number three, which was titled Master of Reality.
Oh
And
yeah,
this one came out in 1971. So again, this is like three albums in like less than a year and a half, basically 2 years, whatever. Um, but this again has another eight tracks on the album, um, and a bunch more heavy hitters here. Um, so anybody want to jump
yeah.
in?
I'll jump in first. It's my turn here. I'm gonna start us off with this one. I did not pick a backup or a runner-up song on this one, but I just picked one winner here, and my winner is Solitude.
What?
Oh, okay.
So I said this is another really slow and haunting song by Black Sabbath, not sounds rather that I usually have associated with Ozzy in my head, but in Black Sabbath, with sometimes when they do the softer, mellower, kind of like more jam songs, he can work with some different vocal ranges. This one in particular is crazy, the vocal range. I was going down the rabbit hole a bit on this because it sounds so unlike Ozzy that I wasn't convinced it actually was,
Hmm.
but can conclusively say it is him. Apparently, he's sang in a lower register for this song, which I didn't know he could do. So that is this thing here, which is pretty cool. And also on this song, if I hadn't just earlier today renamed my fantasy football team Kobe before the helicopter,
Yes.
I would have named it Tommy Iommi's Jazz Flute because it kicks ass in this song. So there's that.
Interesting tidbit on that. Tony Iommi was in Jethro Tull very, very briefly.
What?
Oh,
Yes,
I mean, that
yes.
makes sense.
he was the
But
flute.
what's the that's awkward. Um, I guess I'll jump in here a second on this
Do
one.
it.
I this one I in the end was not a difficult choice because the song that I picked is perhaps my favorite Sabbath song of all.
Ooh.
We picked the
Uh,
same song.
but I do just very briefly want to mention the song Into the Void, which is the last track on the album. And it's very interesting because it starts off like kind of slow and just this kind of cozy kind of sounding groove. But then the riff like really freaking grinds, and I think it is addicting. Like that is an incredible song. But the song I am going with as my best song on this album, uh, for much of the same reasons. I feel like it's the same kind of feel as what it evokes for me, but it is Children of the Grave. And the note that I wrote here is the guitar is fucking addictive. It is incredible. I love that riff so damn much. Like, um, it it is like I don't even know how to describe it, but I love it so much. And uh again, like we were saying before, like just the all the instruments working together just have this like really fast paced, just driving sound. And it's so cool. I love every second of this song. Um it has a scorching guitar solo later on. and finishes off with like this really creepy whispering at the end of the track. I just love it.
God damn it, Brett. So for overall album thoughts, I said to me this album feels heavier than the previous two. I read on Wikipedia, apparently Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler both downtuned their instruments for the entire album,
Mm.
specifically to try to achieve like a heavier and darker sound, and I think that comes through. My favorite song, I also picked Children of the Grave. My notes are, holy shit, does this song rock? The main riff is pretty basic, but it really gets the job done. Like it is pretty simple. Like there's not
Yeah,
really
it's
much
not
to it,
it's not
but
intricate.
no, but like you said, it's like very driving. Like it really just like once that riff kicks in, it just like takes you with it. So this is kind of an all-time Sabbath classic.
Solitude.
No,
Best winner on that one.
you are in
Solitude.
solitude with your choice.
Yes.
Nice. Um, all right. Well, we're satisfied there. Moving on to album number 4, titled Volume 4,
Ooh.
appropriately enough. This came out in 1972, so another very, very quick release on this one. And I would say it definitely was a little bit kind of they were kind of evolving their sound a bit with this album. I know that I've seen it said where they were starting some more kind of like experimental sounds, and some like kind of different melodies and things like that. And I think that definitely comes out with the song that I'm going to choose here. But anybody want to kick us off?
Damn it, Brett. I will kick us off. um, so I mean, overall thoughts on this album, Brett. I know you mentioned that they're kind of starting to mix things up a little bit. That is true, but honestly, by the time I got to this album with this listen, I felt like they had kind of locked into a formula by this point, and a lot of the songs are starting to sound a little bit samey to me, if I'm being honest. Um, Again, kind of the like prototypical doom metal sound, like start off kind of slow with like some heavy riffage and then end the song by speeding things up and like rocking out. That's kind of like the Black Sabbath formula. Um, and like, I mean, I'm not mad about it, but I honestly did not enjoy this album overall as much as the previous few. That being
That's fair.
said, speaking of changing things up, the song that I picked is Changes, because contrary to what I just said about things sounding samey, this is a piano ballad on a Black Sabbath album. And it feels unlike anything that we have previously heard from Black Sabbath. I think it is genuinely a beautiful song. Apparently, it was inspired by Bill Ward, the drummer's divorce. Um, and I noted the lyrics are pretty simple, but I think they are very effective because of the kind of lovely piano melody that I think is Tony Iommi again coming through, and Ozzy's vocal performance. I think it works much better than you would expect a Black Sabbath piano ballad to work.
I do not, off the top of my head, know who plays piano on this. I don't
Bill
know if it's one of the
Collins.
original members or if it's someone else they
I
brought in.
think it is Tony Iommi.
Well, just listen. Does he miss every fifth key?
It is Tony Iommi.
Wow.
Man, what can't that guy do with his missing fingers?
uh, Cody, want to go or you want me to jump
It
in?
doesn't matter. I can jump in here with the correct answer off of
Oh,
Volume 4, which is not Changes. It is my runner-up song. Just no notes on this, but my runner-up was Snowblind on this album. And my winner for this album was Supernaut. which is another one that has a lot of sounds crammed into one song, a lot of heavy electric guitar. I have no idea if there's like a deep meaning to these lyrics in this song or not, but to me it just sounds like somebody told them, hey, we could only afford to get you guys 20 minutes in the studio, just see what you can make. And they went in and they just fucking thrashed it down. And it's really awesome. The beat gets your feet moving. There's like a great thump to the guitar and the drums in this one. And the highest compliment I can pay them on this song is it sounds a lot like a proto Rage Against the Machine. You're welcome, Joe.
Ooh.
There it was. There it was.
God damn it. Why
There
would you
it
insult Black
was.
Sabbath like that?
Yeah. Now that you said that, because I'm listening to it myself right now,
Ruin that song for you.
I can actually hear that a little bit. That makes sense musically. That's a cool pick. And one thing I would say about that song, and it kind of relates to the album just in general, is like I feel like they started this song all like I think it really shows that like they started making like some music that was not necessarily like doom sounding. Like this song is much more like fun
Yeah,
metal.
more upbeat kind
Yeah,
of.
exactly. So that's a cool pick. I also have my runner up on this one was Snowblind, and the reason I like it has just a really cool different kind of sound to it. There's like a different kind of guitar work. It's like more elegant and less chunky riffs. It also works in a little bit of like there's definitely some stringed instrument in there. I couldn't tell you right offhand which it is, if it's like a violin or something. But there's like some symphonic kind of elements in there, which gives it some really cool sounds. But I also went with my favorite song on this album is Changes, for much of what Joe said. It's like it's sad at its core because it is, it's obviously very much talking about things ending and not in a good way. It's not something that that he's singing about, hey, it's going to be better moving forward. As this is ending and it's bad. But it also does have like a beauty to it. And the piano is really cool. It's such a change of pace, again, as Joe said, and it just has like an almost ethereal kind of quality to it. And it feels very heartfelt. I think this is like it's the first track from Sabbath that was like that. And I feel like it shows that they could do that very well. It was a great track all around. So yeah, my favorite from this one is Changes as well.
Wrong. Aren't you guys a cute little couple?
We did not exchange notes before this.
No.
Sharon!
Moving on to album number 5, titled Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, coming out in 1973.
Finally, they took a break. Jeez.
Exactly, yeah. A whole year between albums.
Good Lord.
And this one, I think, very much like continues kind of the changing trajectory of the sound a little bit. It definitely was a lot less doom sound on this. Still very heavy, but I feel like there's a lot of songs on here that kind of have almost like a jam band quality to them. And I definitely the runner up I had in this one was Sabracadabra. That's definitely what I would say about that, is like like really interesting, almost like dreamy quality of the music, which is very cool. But my favorite song on this album is the title track, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. And part of the reason I picked this one is because it still kind of has like an early Sabbath quality sound to it. It's like a kind of almost sinister sound to the guitars, which actually sets it apart from other songs on this album, because the sound on the rest of the album is not quite so doomy sounding, as I said. It also has some like really cool, like clean guitar work layered in. So like it kind of bounces back between like heavy distortion guitar and like clean electric guitar, which I think plays off it like really well. And I think there's also a lot of work in here that kind of shows Tony Iommi's ability to play very intricate music as well.
Um, I mean, to echo everything Brett said.
Oh,
I do agree. I like this album, I think, better than Volume 4. I like that it does feel like they really grew a lot sonically with this album. Like they're kind of starting to do a little bit of that with Volume 4, but this feels like they're breaking the formula a lot, and actually like, incorporating a lot of new like instruments or like composition. I don't know, like a lot of it just sounds different than a lot of what came before it. I am also going to echo Brett in that I picked the title track Sabbath Bloody Sabbath as my favorite, for a lot of the same reasons he mentioned. I also think the vocals on this song are interesting. I feel like Ozzy kind of goes higher than he previously did, to the point
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
he's almost like screaming like throughout a lot of the song, um, which is kind of a change up. And again, what you're saying musically, as far as like it feeling kind of like earlier stuff, I think that's true, but I think it is more nuanced and layered, and it almost feels like there are like three different songs crammed together in this track, but like it also feels like it all works together. Like there's kind of an opening section, and then it breaks down and gets a little more like stripped down sounding for a while. But then the last maybe like third of this song, this new riff comes in, and it is just like this heavy chugging, like it almost reminded me of like Metallica or like some metal bands that would come along like in the, like thrash era in the 80s. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
super heavy riff that kind of closes things out. And I think it's pretty cool.
Well, you're wrong, and I'll tell you why. So officially, my runner-up song on this is "Killing Yourself to Live," which, if you listen to it right around the 135 to 140 minute mark, it sounds like the song could actually end right there, with the way they're kind of tampering down. But then somehow it like only ramps up for 4 more minutes past that, like continually ramping up past that mark to the end. So that's my official runner-up. Although I did have Spiral Architect and a National Acrobat also in that contention for runner-up at one point. So I think I also preferred this album to the previous one. My winner on this album is actually going to be Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. We got a match finally. There it
Wow.
is.
All right.
So notes for me on this, and you guys covered it well, but fun fact for me on this is I did not even hear this song until my daughter was in School of Rock, and they did like Ozfest, I think, or something as one of the shows that they did, and somebody sang this there, and that was the first I'd heard this song, actually, was like a teenager singing it. So that's kind of fun. Just a really fun thumping sound in this one again, and I think they technically have cracked some kind of code here I was just playing around with while you guys are talking. So they do basically like Ozzy sings, and then he just picks two or three syllables at the end to like strain, and it just sounds awesome, right? So I was just practicing here. You could just put going to the grocery store, gonna get some corn, and it just works. Like anything sounds awesome with that. It's crazy. It's like a 3-4-5 rhythm, and it's amazing. Which I'm going to play around with more now because that's fun. But it's great, and like you said, it just has like a whole total tonal change with like the light and airy parts here, and this one's just really fun to listen to. So also my winner. We got our first match. There it is. Also my crystal skull is empty, so
So things only go up from here.
there we go.
He's primed and ready to go.
Yeah.
Um,
Get some corn.
that's I am very impressed how well that works. Yeah, I would listen to that song.
Is that right?
I do need to hear the rest of it. I'd listen to it.
That's enough about this album. So moving on.
jumping ahead an entire 2 years
I can't stand it. I know you planned it.
to,
Whoa.
to their sixth album. And this is the one that I'm really interested to hear both your thoughts on this one, because I think it definitely is it's a different album, a little different sound to it, and in part, I know I don't have all the details in front of me, but I know, like, between Sabbath, Black Sabbath, and this album, they essentially discovered that their manager had been screwing them out of millions of dollars for
That sounds
their
probable.
entire career.
Oh man.
Shocking in the music industry, I'm sure, to hear that. But like I said, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but something in my mind seemed to think like their manager was taking like 50% of their profit.
Wow.
For like this entire time. So this entire album, titled Sabotage, releasing in 1975, has a very angry tone throughout, understandably. It also is like the first album in their career, which, in my opinion, doesn't have like I don't know that any of these songs like really did well. I'd have to go back and look because I don't have it in front of me, but I don't think any of the songs on this album were like big hits. They certainly weren't songs that I heard on the radio ever. But all that said, there's still a couple songs in here that I really love, but I'd like to hear what you guys think first.
You want me to go first, Joe?
Do it.
Sabotage. All right. My runner-up on this one is Super Czar, which is, there's some really good music going on here, but then they also have these almost Gregorian-like chants that they do over top of it, and it's just a weird song, but I made that my runner-up song. My winner for the album here is Hole in the Sky, the first song on the album. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with the band Jane's Addiction, but Ozzy's voice in this one sounds exactly like Perry Farrell. Like, it is uncanny how much this song sounds like it could be off a Jane's Addiction album. Really good jam in this one. It just kind of keeps running all the way through, with the guitar keeping time again, and then drum and guitar comboing on the same notes, which is really fun. Vocals are really fun on here, and it also has like a kind of like a dirty, distorted, and fuzzy feel to it that really kind of goes over top the whole song itself, which is just makes it more fun to me. So Hole in the Sky is my choice here.
I honestly, my notes say I feel like this was kind of a step backward after Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath for the band. I kind of feel like, and I mean, I haven't honestly read the entire, behind the scenes history of Black Sabbath, but musically, to me, I feel like this album was kind of the beginning of the end of Black Sabbath. And from the timeline of the band, I would bet that that was probably also true behind the scenes for the band. Um, I honestly, overall, I didn't really like strongly dislike this album, but like I said, it felt like kind of a step backwards to me. That being said, for my favorite song on this album, I picked The Thrill of It All. I noted Tony Iommi's guitar work, both in the intro and the main riff, are fire. And weirdly, starting around the halfway mark of this song, there is some use of synthesizers and a more upbeat melody that I felt like kind of foreshadowed what Ozzy's solo sound would be, at least on his first couple records. Um, it weirdly sounds like what, especially like Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman era Ozzy would sound like to me.
I can see that. Yeah, I agree as well that, like, I mean, I have to imagine that behind the scenes there was a lot of like, I'm not sure I want to be in music anymore at this point in their career.
Yeah.
They probably were like, there had to have been some of that where they were like, you know what, I don't feel like I can write music right now. Like I'm not creative. I just crank out some whatever, and make an album. And to some degrees, I think it does show in that the album in general is a little less it's definitely less catchy, and the melodies are a little bit not as groovy and easy to get into. But there are a couple of tracks on here that I love listening to, and there was one, the one I'm going to be talking about here in a moment. I essentially said, no matter what other scores I have on these songs, this is when we were trying to do a top 15. I was like, this is going to be in my top 15, no matter what. I don't know where it's going to be, but it's going to be in there somewhere. And that is the final song on the album, called The Writ. And what I have here noted, it is easily, at least in the Ozzy era, it's the angriest Sabbath song. It kind of like starts out a little bit like lower and quiet, but like it's even in like the early verses, you can like hear Ozzy's like kind of like he's like spitting the words out. Like it's you definitely, for me at least, I feel like he's getting his emotions out through the words. Like I feel like you actually feel it there. And then it like it gets into some of the later verses, and it's just like, I don't know, there's something about the fury in this song that really drives it home for me. Just being pissed off at the world has its place sometimes, and for me, this song really kind of I really identify with that bit of it. So that's my pick for this album, is The Writ.
Nice.
No match. No soup for you. Sorry, no soup for you. No, it's got to be three. It's got to be three, I guess.
We are going to move on here to the next album here comes in 1976. So also another very quick album. But this is the album titled Technical Ecstasy.
Cool. Isn't it ever? Oh boy.
Start getting interesting. So they're definitely, this was one I don't know like the history of this album necessarily, like, but there was an article I kind of scanned through briefly, and the title of it was, "What the hell happened to Technical Ecstasy?"
Can I just say my notes for this album literally say, what the fuck did I just listen to?
Ouch.
That seems like a pretty fair review there. What's interesting, I think it's like there's almost certainly people who hear this album and they're like, I love this music. This is incredible. Like there's got to be people out there who say that. And
I do. I mean, I wonder what it would be like if you were not familiar with Black Sabbath. Like if this is the first Black Sabbath album you heard,
right,
maybe you'd be a little bit higher on it.
Well, I can tell you that I was not familiar with Black Sabbath, and my album notes say, this is my least favorite album, full stop.
Of all time ever by any artist.
No, not of any artist ever, but of their entire discography that I listened to, it was the worst.
Yeah. And I do know this album was recorded in Miami, which I believe is the first one that was recorded outside the UK. And I feel like that definitely played into it to some factor. I don't know precisely how much, but there's definitely like sounds on here that are much more kind of mellow and like experimental. And it's like they're trying to sound like laid back. Almost like
it's really weird given the amount of cocaine that was probably in Miami in 1976.
Right?
I just find it funny that they have the word ecstasy in the album title when it's definitely not at
I was
all.
ecstatic when it ended.
That's true.
Um,
Technically.
yeah, it's just like the tuning is weird. Like some of the tones are just like grating. Like they just don't sound good. They're not pleasant to listen to, let alone the fact that it's like a different sound for the band completely. But um, I don't know. All that said, I picked "Dirty Women" as my song on this track because I like my women dirty.
Okay.
But no, uh, it does have a there's a bit of a sense of like an ominous sound, like you would expect from Sabbath on this track. Um, and the guitar work on it is pretty simple, but it is catchy. It does have a catchy quality to it. And there is like halfway through the song, there's like a guitar riff that kind of feels more intense and like kind of picks up the pace a bit. But overall, even as the best song on this album, it's not one that I would include on like a must listen to for Black Sabbath kind of list.
I picked It's All Right. My notes say it's sung by Bill Ward, which is inherently interesting.
Mm.
Not much else of note. I picked it by default because it's the only Black Sabbath song, or at least certainly the first Black Sabbath song that is sung by someone other than Ozzy Osbourne. Um,
Yeah.
and that's about it. I will say, kind of going through and listening to snippets of some of these songs right now, weirdly, the thing that comes to mind is it almost sounds like they're trying to sound like ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, on this album. Like some of the arrangements and stuff, but like just a really shitty version of ELO.
Yeah, that track in particular makes me feel like Paul McCartney.
I could see that for
Yeah, for
sure.
sure. Um, I didn't have a runner-up, but if I had to pick one, I guess maybe it would be "It's All Right, Joe." 'Cause that's wasn't awful, but for
Yeah.
me, I chose the song "All Moving Parts" on this one. Parenthetical stands still for our title on this. And I put on my notes here. I picked this purely because I need one song from each album. So I said it's not that bad, but it's closer to more like a southern rock jam, like Leonard Skinner, but like the B-side to a Leonard Skinner song that was actually good. You know, it would be like on the back of that with a bit more funk added in. And in the lyrics, he says he seems to get his pleasure from pain, which just made me think I'm glad someone's getting pleasure from this song. So, yeah, it's not that bad, but it's nothing that I would go out of my way to listen to ever again. So,
Yes. Let's move on from that disaster to
Whew,
the
the
next
Goonies album.
perhaps a bigger disaster. I don't
What?
see
I
what you guys have to
disagree.
say. 1978's album "Never Say Die," which is the final album featuring Ozzy Osbourne, and really kind of I definitely for me kind of continues the trajectory from Techno Ecstasy in that they were, definitely changing the sound and having like some lot less doom sound and some more kind of interesting like fun quotes in quotes metal. Um it it's like some weird amalgamation of like a jam band
yep,
like throughout the album.
this feels like it should have been in the 60s, but it's in the 70s. It's weird.
I guess I could see that. Do you want to go first, Cody, on this one?
Sure, I can go first on this one. So, Never Say Die. Yeah, exactly what I said here. Basically, it sounds to me like it's more in the 60s. A lot of shredding guitar and just like happy-go-lucky guitar, if that's a term I can use in here. My runner-up was Air Dance, which has a very hypnotic effect. My notes say if the Wizard of Oz literally shat a rainbow, it might sound like this. Dreamy and airy, and I said might be fun if you were in a deprivation chamber, but that's that one. And then for my winner track on this, I finally settled on Junior's Eyes. which has a trippy guitar beat, 45 seconds of intro bass, which is kind of unique. That stands out a lot here. Reminds me of a Paramore song, This Is Why. Another comparison for you here. Structurally, I also enjoy how the song is broken up with the really long intro. You don't usually see a song with as much bass featured as you do here. The guitar is kind of barely there in this one. It's almost like distracting background noise. And then my note said when I listened to this one the second time, this one really grew on me the second time I listened to it. Wow. So I had
I'm
Junior's Eyes as my pick.
I'm mad because I get the Paramore thing.
Right?
It does sound pretty similar. I mean, this is far from my favorite Sabbath album, but to me, it felt like kind of a return to form after the shit show of Technical Ecstasy.
I would
Um,
agree.
it at least, I mean, I do agree that it maybe sounds a little more 60s jam bandy, but at least it is a move back toward the sound that we want from Black Sabbath. Um, I actually went with the title and opening track, Never Say Die, for my favorite. I think it's a great album opener. To me, it kind of felt like them saying, "We're back." Um, it is a little bit faster and more upbeat than a lot of the earlier stuff. Like you guys said, less of that kind of doom metal feeling, but
That's a
it
good
still
one.
felt pretty Sabbathy and it still rocks pretty hard.
That's a good choice.
That's fair. Um, yeah, I did like just in general. There's a lot less. Just everything in general was less catchy for me on this album. It's hard to get into a lot of
You
these
picked
songs.
song two because you thought it was a Mortal Kombat reference, didn't you? Johnny Blade.
It's
It's
like
Johnny Cage.
it's
I know it's
well,
Sonya
they
Blades. It's
they
like
had they had a
double.
Uh,
kid, so that's
Yeah.
that's
Johnny
true.
Blade.
Or is
So
it Shockwave, the G.I. Joe? Which one did you choose, Brett?
well, I actually chose Shockwave.
Oh,
Ooh.
And for simply because it sounded more like early Sabbath than the other tracks on this album for me. Um, not really any notes beyond that. Um, I there was some odd, just the way that the album was kind of produced. That it a lot of these sounds kind of sound like they're playing in a tin can, which was not appealing. Uh, Something about the way they put that together. I don't know, just it didn't improve the the sound quality of it. But yeah, Shockwave for me is the one I picked here, and literally I just because it sounded a bit heavier and more like early Sabbath. So nothing really else to say on that. Uh,
Speaking of things that sound heavier and more like early Sabbath,
yes, indeed, I misspoke earlier when I said that Never Say Die was the last album featuring Ozzy. It simply was for, let me do some
long
math,
friggin' time.
about 35 years. 35 years go by. Black Sabbath has somewhere in the range of 8 or 9 albums with various other singers. And back around coming to 2013, they reform to produce the album titled 13, which, as Joe was referring to, very much sounded like early Sabbath. This is one that that I loved and enjoyed a lot of songs on. I did feel like it was, very much back to what we would expect from Sabbath. Um, the song that I picked on this one is the track "God Is Dead," which for me easily has like the catchiest kind of vocal hook on the album. Just has a great sound that you can get into on that. Also just has a great like classic Sabbath style riff to it, real chunky bass, which like really this one, the way they produced it, like you could really hear that it sounds really good. Um, and this track also, like Ozzy kind of puts his voice out there a bit more, like it's which is not common on the album in general. Um, Probably because he was more math, somewhere around 55 years old at this point. Um, Maybe even 65 was
no, they were all in their mid
65.
60s at this
Yeah,
point.
65 he would have been. So the fact that he was, putting his voice out there as much as he does on this track was pretty incredible. But it is really catchy for me, and it is a song that I do have on my general Black Sabbath greatest hits list.
Nice. Cody, do you want to go or do you want me to
Sure,
go?
I can go. All right, you guys. Can we talk about how great songs 2 through 5 are on this album? Like, I had
Pretty
a really
good.
hard. This is kind of the album I was hinting at that I had a really hard time picking. All 4 of those songs I feel like could definitely be my pick off this album. Shout out to the song titled Methodemic as well, but not because it's a great song, just because of the title. But anyway, this is tough. My runner-up song ended up being Zeitgeist, or Zeitgeist, however they say that freaking word. How do you say that? Zeitgeist?
I would say Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist? 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 All right, all right.
It's Zeitgeist.
I think it means phantom who has butt sex with you while you're sleeping.
A whale's vagina. What?
Yes. That song in particular, I said, what a throwback to 42 years earlier. This is a slower rock jam. They have sprinkling of like some Middle Eastern music in that one, mixed with some 60s psychedelic and surf jam as well.
It's like
it's
Planet
really
Caravan.
complex. I guess so, but that one didn't catch me like this one did. My ultimate winner here was the same as Brett's, actually. I picked God is Dead. Just really, in terms of some classic Ozzy and Sabbath themes of mortality and what's next after this life, and the music is fantastic. And this is another one where a few of these middle albums, I'll be honest, like if not every song on the album, a lot of the songs on the album, they probably could have trimmed like a minute or 2 off of those songs because some of them get a little long in the tooth by the end. This is a song where like you're 6 minutes and 24 seconds in to the song, and somehow it rocks harder than that for the next 2.5 minutes. And it's fucking insane and it's great. And I picked God is Dead for my choice as well. But it's a great album. I mean, just side note here, we got to give these guys a lot of credit here because how hard is it to make an album like 40 some years after your first, much less like 10 after your first album, and manage to pull off the same feel to an album that you had then? Like, I feel like there's so many classic bands that have been around for 20, 30, 40 years, and like most of them cannot do that. You can't go back and replicate the sound of those early albums that late in your career. Or for modern bands, like 10 years after they're big, they can't even go back and simulate that same feeling again with the way their music sounds. They managed to pull it off on this album, and I think that is very noteworthy to put in there for our notes tonight. So,
All right, let me tell you guys why you're both wrong.
you picked the same song.
Well, I mean, so speaking of this album overall, it was interesting for me because I actually saw them on the tour for this album, but I had never actually listened to the album prior to getting ready for this podcast. I saw them on this tour and then also on the End tour, which was a couple of years later, and they were fantastic both times. I'm glad I got to see them. Sadly, Bill Ward was not touring with them. They had a different drummer, but the other guys all brought it. Like you guys said, I was kind of blown away by this album. It's amazing that all the members were in their mid 60s and managed to sound like this. It sounds like a very solid Black Sabbath record. I, prefer it to the last couple, at least, that we talked about. That being said, Cody, you were talking about bands trying to recapture the earlier sound.
Yeah.
This reminded me of Metallica's last couple albums where it feels like they were intentionally trying to sound like their earlier albums that people liked more. Which
Anger.
it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like obviously that sound is popular for a reason, but it does feel intentional and not necessarily like it feels a little bit forced, I think is what I'm trying to say. But that being said, it still sounds great and I enjoyed it. All that being said, my favorite track on this album is God is Dead ?
Oh,
This song has it all. A slow foreboding intro leading to doomy riffage, classic Ozzy vocals, and all building to a hard rocking outro. If it wasn't for the production, you could have told me this was a lost Black Sabbath song from the early 70s, and I would have believed you. Like, just because it's a more modern recording, it just inherently, like, the actual sound quality is significantly better than anything from the early days. But
Yeah.
honestly, if it wasn't for that, I mean, even in terms of like Ozzy's vocals, like he sounds amazing. Like I would have believed that this was a track from like back in the day.
I agree with all that.
I'm surprised Brett didn't pick Dirty Women live in Australia 2013.
Well, I mean,
7 minutes and 20 seconds of Dirty Women. After that, I guess they're clean. I don't know.
Brett can only last for 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, okay.
yeah, that's true. All right.
Got
Well,
the Jack.
that concludes our review of the albums here. Now, before we go out, I think we for a little more fun here, we'll just see if we can pick our overall favorite songs from the Black Sabbath era. So I'll go ahead and kick it off here. I alluded to it earlier, and despite it not being like one of the big hits, the song to me that like every time I hear it, like I'm definitely in love with hearing it is Children of the Grave. As I said, it has like this weirdly addictive quality to the guitar work. And like I just, it comes on and I'm just headbanging like crazy. And man, I just love that song so much. It relatively quickly I selected that as my favorite song from the Black Sabbath era.
Nice. I'm going to throw a curveball because my favorite song is not one that I mentioned previously.
Ooh,
what?
How does that work?
Great question. Well, as I said, on a couple of them, I purposely picked songs that were like slightly more obscure. I have to go with, for my overall favorite Black Sabbath song, a little ditty called War Pigs. My notes say, "Oh Lord, yeah." I think Cody, I think we're joking at one point and said that you had never heard this song before at our group chat, and I was like, that is like the most Black Sabbath song, and I feel like this is just the prototypical Black Sabbath song. I mean, like the main riff is iconic. The lyrics shockingly continue to be relevant to this day. Talking about politicians using people as pawns in their war and power grabbing and things like that. And I mean, that's another thing. We haven't really talked that much about their lyrics, but like they often, like a lot of their songs have like strong anti-war messages. And I mean, that continues even into Ozzy's solo career, which we'll probably touch on at various points. But in terms of like the lyrical message musically, like this song also has the thing I love, which is a good groove, especially like the bridge when it gets to like politicians hide themselves away. Like there's some like pretty like funky guitar riff going on there. I think this song for me just kind of more so than any other encompasses everything that I love about Black Sabbath.
Like it.
Top one for me over here. I am tempted to go with Iron Man, but I'm actually going to choose. And believe it or not, this was pre me going to get some corn. I'm going to pick Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath as my favorite song at the moment of Black Sabbath. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Cool. An evolving thing, though. That's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, we want to just real quickly as well, if you want to pick our favorite album overall as well. And for me, I think it's fairly easily Paranoid for me. I mean, it has all of the biggest hits, I feel like. And every song on this album is really great. Even the ones that aren't widely known. Um, yeah, I think that's the one that I can definitely listen to on repeat.
I agree. It has to be Paranoid, I feel like. I mean, the first two tracks are War Pigs and Paranoid. Like, even just that 1-2 punch is enough to make it a fantastic album. But then you get, Iron Man and Electric Funeral, which I love. Fairies Wear Boots, which I talked about earlier. Like, if this is not a perfect album, I think it is very close to it. I think certainly of all the Sabbath albums, this is the one I have listened to the most. And I think that is largely because this is the one that I don't think has a single skip on it for me. Like, I will, every time I put this on, I will listen to the entire thing all the way through.
Well, for me, to just kind of pick something different here, I am going to
Technical
choose
Ecstasy.
Technical Ecstasy in case I want to kill myself. Just kidding. I'll go on a different path here. I will pick the actual album 13 as my winner here. Pretty controversial, but here's why. Between those four songs I listed, 2 through 5, this was the album where I really could have a really hard time picking what my favorite song off the album was of the four. There were other albums that had at least four great songs to me on them, but it was pretty obvious what the best song on the album was, or second best album. This one still, I think, is interesting to just think about those songs. So I'll go devil's advocate here. I'll play 13 as my winner tonight.
Nice.
Their last album was the best album.
Way to go out. All right. Well, anything else you gentlemen want to talk about specifically with Black Sabbath before we wrap up this episode?
No, now I got to go listen to all the Ozzy albums. So
That's right.
we'll see how that goes.
I will
All
just
right.
say, I mean, I obviously we're specifically honoring Ozzy. May he rest in peace. But I think there were some decent songs to be had in the non-Ozzy Black Sabbath era. I know I specifically shouted out the Mob Rules with Ronnie James Dio in our 80s music countdown. I think Dio is a great vocalist, and they had a few great tracks together.
They did.
So
I
check those
definitely
out,
have to agree
folks.
with that. Yeah. Yep. All
I was a
right.
big fan of Lawrence Cottle, who played bass in 1988 on the album Headless Cross.
No.
No, he did.
Well, I mean, speaking of that though, I do want to just underscore like one last time, again, since Ozzy is the reason that like, inspired us to do this podcast, but I don't know that we have talked enough on this podcast about how talented all four members of the band are and were.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Tony Iommi's guitar playing pretty much invented a musical genre. Geezer Butler, like an amazing bassist. I mean, when I saw them live, like even though they were well into their 60s, or the last time I saw them, they're probably all at least close to 70. Like he really was throwing down on that bass, like just doing some phenomenal work. And I mean, Bill Ward, obviously great drummer as well. So I think it's easy for a lot of people to just think of Black Sabbath as being like Ozzy Osbourne's band, but they were all doing some incredible work in it.
Not to mention, like, the four primary members here, like the fact that I mean, I know we're talking about Ozzy's passing, but the fact that they were all around that long,
Yeah.
that Ozzy's the first to go is kind of
That
crazy.
is kind of shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that you did bring that up before we checked out here. But yeah, I agree. Like Tony Iommi is easily one of the greatest of all time.
Absolutely.
Not just because of his influence, but like he shows in like later albums, like he's really damn good on the guitar. And like it's not just like super catchy power riffs. Like he gets real technical and can play quite fast when he wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah, just great all around. But yeah.
Yeah, we're talking 76 and two members at 77 at the moment. So They're up there, and Iommi has four wives, so like one for every 10 albums or something for Black Sabbath. So
I'm not sure if that
right out
adds
there.
to why he's so good, but it is of note.
It's probably why he's missing a little bit of finger.
All right. Tune in next time when Black Sabbath reforms with Post Malone on vocals.
Woo!
Not completely kidding there. We as I said, this is a 2-part episode. We will be continuing with Ozzy's solo career, featuring Post Malone at certain points later on. But I am Brett. As I said before, I'm here with Joe and Cody here tonight. It's been a lot of fun, and stick around soon. We will have Ozzy's solo career for you.
Vodka, it's good.
Bye.